Today, we are going to be talking about preventing and handling your child's homesickness at camp this summer. My name is Audrey Monkey, and I have been a summer camp director for 33 years.
And I'm Sarah Coulias. I've been a camp director for over 20 years, and both Audrey and I have had the privilege of being frequent writers and speakers on youth development.
So to get started, Sarah's just going to talk about the whole concept of homesickness.
One of our biggest fears as parents when our kids go away from us, whether it's at a new school program or a camp program or even a sports program, is what if they are homesick? What if they're unhappy? What if they miss me? Perhaps they're not ready to go. That's such a common and normal and understandable parent response. Fact of the matter is, homesickness is a really, really natural and normal response when we step a little bit away from our safe places. In Michael Thompson's book, Homesick and Happy, I love how Dr. Thompson reminds us that the majority of campers, well over 80%, and even some staff members will experience at least a twinge of homesickness when they are away from home at camp. And they should. Hopefully that means home is a wonderful and good place. And they have to start somewhere exercising the muscle of independence. That comes, though, with some discomfort and sometimes some insecurity. And sometimes there's even some physical pain like a stomach ache or maybe a headache that represents my missing the home I love. While it is a normal thing, it also is a really important thing to teach our children how to tolerate and then tackle and overcome homesickness. Camps, quality camps who are intentional and really caring about their campers have all kinds of strategies to help children overcome this. But it really is important to know that it's part of the growing up process and the coming of age process. Would you add anything else, Audrey?
No, I think that's really covers just that whole, with all of these difficult things that our kids go through, it's really important for them to know that it's normal and they're not alone. When kids feel like they're the only one, that's what makes them feel worse. When they understand that this is a feeling that a lot of people have, including the counselors, as you mentioned, it does help them understand it. So I think that's great if parents, even before camp, if the topic comes up, or if you're kind of thinking, well, they've gotten homesick before at grandma's house. So, maybe just mentioning to them, hey, you know what, you might miss me at home a little bit. That's normal. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Just to, again, let the kids hear from you as a parent that it's normal. And, you could even share your own story of, at a time when you missed home and, things that you did. So
I also think I would add too, Audrey, that I think it's really important for us to think about helping tackle homesickness when the stakes are low, as opposed to waiting till the stakes are high. By that, I mean practicing tackling homesickness at grandma's house, at a sleepover, at a short retreat, or even a 2-week camp, rather than waiting until I'm heading off to college or I'm getting married. By that time, we really want that muscle to be developed. And so these are our years to help our kids build that independence.
Yes. And I think one of the questions that I get a lot, sometimes parents anticipate that their child will be homesick and the child really doesn't end up being homesick at all. And then other times, surprisingly, a child that a parent didn't think would be homesick is. So it's sort of unpredictable. Sometimes it's just what's been going on with them in their life, or just different things that make some child more susceptible to it. But Sarah and I both have, over our many years at camp, seen all kinds of kids with varying levels of homesickness. And one of the things that I have really experienced is that kids who are the really extremely homesick kids, which there really aren't that many. That's an unusual thing for the kids who are so homesick that, they're just repeatedly saying, I want to go home. I want to go home. I can't make it here. They say they lack confidence in themselves to be successful. So working with those kids have been some of my favorite experiences at camp, because it's amazing to see their transformation. These kids that arrive at camp, and usually it's the very first day or two that they are just sure. They're very sure on the inside that they cannot do it. They just really don't believe in themselves that they will be able to be successful. And later, as the session goes on, with encouragement from counselors, with positive messages from their parents that we're going to talk about, those are the kids that at the end of their session, even if they're still feeling some homesickness at night or rest hour or certain times of day, those are the ones who feel such an amazing sense of accomplishment. Because for another kid, their challenge at camp might have been climbing on the ropes course because they're scared of heights. For the child who's homesick, their challenge is being away from home.
And what an important challenge to tackle. It is important too to understand ourselves and help our campers understand that even that twinge of homesick till the end doesn't mean they were unsuccessful, doesn't mean that they didn't do a fabulous job. There might still be that longing for home and that excitement to get home. And camp can still have been an amazing experience. I do say, though, it is a remarkable thing that more often than not, that child that was anxious and maybe teary on day one, after 13, 14 days at camp, they're saying, can I stay another week? Next year, can I come 2 sessions? And wow, what a thing to celebrate.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that we talk about a lot with families, depending on the camp where your child is going, some camps, all the parents drop their kids off and pick them up. So, especially smaller camps. But there are many camps like both of ours where we have a bus option and kids can take a bus from a location, usually several hours from the camp. And for us, we usually recommend for campers to take the bus to camp and for parents to come up at the end. We've always thought that, the bus, we have the counselors introducing the kids to each other. It's a really clean goodbye because all the kids get on the bus and they're excited and they're singing songs and everyone waves and the parents are all saying goodbye at the same time. So it's a little bit, while some kids, it's painful for them to get on the bus, it makes it a very clean break. So we usually recommend that. But I know you have experienced that there are some kids that might work better for them to be dropped off at camp. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I agree with you. I think the vast majority of kids riding up on the bus, because camp starts on the bus, it's 6 more hours. And many campers will write home during the session and say, hey, I know you were going to come pick me up, but can I take that bus? Because it's 6 more hours of camp. So that is, and I also actually think the bus is often easier on mom and dad too, because they have a camaraderie of others who are releasing for the first or second time. And that can be a really supportive goodbye. There are a few kids, though, that we have found through the years that do benefit from being dropped off by mom or dad at camp. Maybe those who have a little bit higher anxiety, maybe who feel safer knowing that mom has met my counselor, mom has seen my room, dad knows what the space looks like and talked with me or talked with the nurse with me about my medications because I have a lot of them or I have a special need. So sometimes for those special circumstances, that transition of knowing home knows camp and camp knows home can be really settling for some campers.
I agree. And then for parents who do decide to drop their kids at camp, because we have some that always do, or, that kind of thing, it's important to sort of strategize when you're going to leave. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it gets a little awkward. Once all the buses have arrived and everyone's, toured around camp, if you're the only parent still there, it's time for camp to start. And, obviously as camp directors and staff, we don't want to, send you away, but know that camp won't really start for your child until you depart and they can be fully integrated with their group. They're kind of divided between like their counselor and their new friends and you until that moment when you choose to depart.
You're exactly right. If I can tell a funny little story, we had a set of grandparents who came an hour early before drop off and then watched their daughter come and drop off the grandchild. And they stayed all the way until dinner time. They brought a picnic and they just set up sort of a little home there for a bit and watched the whole afternoon unfold. And we took good care of them. They were a fascinating couple who had traveled well and loved the camp experience, but that grandchild did not really arrive in her heart and mind until well past dinner. So talk together, even include your child in. How do you want us to leave? What's the best way to go, and what will make you feel more confident, most confident and safe?
Absolutely. And I go back to, I would encourage the bus if at all possible, just because it's a really easy departure and they are right away with all these other kids, and they start making friends on that bus
right away.
So that's pretty fun too. So the next part of this talk, we're just going to talk about at home things that parents can do to sort of prevent or mitigate homesickness by just doing some preparation and talking about things ahead of time. So Sarah, why don't you just start with some of the ideas that you want to share with parents of how they can help just set their child up for success at camp?
Sure. Well, if you think of even yourself, what helps you handle new situations best? We find that kids who arrive at the bus or arrive at camp rested and healthy and not too stressed out by racing from one big activity to the next, they just have their a sense of confidence and a sense of peacefulness that is different than those who stayed up late the night before and rushed to pack. And so if you think about the week before camp, really having it be a peaceful and talkative and thoughtful kind of week, if possible, that the child has helped pack themselves, knows where their things are, maybe has visited the website one more time just to get a little more information. I know what to expect now. If there has been any additional prep materials that came out. Some kids want more knowledge, and that would be a great thing for them to review in advance. In addition, before camp, it's a great thing to broach the subject of homesickness. Honey, you may have times where you might miss me, and I'm going to have times where I miss you. And that means we love each other a lot. And then right there, transition to conversations about, so even though you might miss me, I'm so excited about the experience you're going to have. I can't wait till you come home or you write me and you tell me about the new friends you made, about the role models you found, and about all the activities that you have accomplished. Do talk about with your child that it's not a bad thing or it's not a failure, and it's not even embarrassing to be a little homesick, and make sure that they know that when those twinges come, that they need to trust their grown-up, their counselor, and tell them about it. You can role play, you can talk through how they might say it, and you might even say, well, if you do get homesick, what time of day might that be? And what can you do to prepare yourself for it? And promise them that it is gonna pass. It is going to pass, or at least diminish over the time they're there. The more they throw themselves into the experience, urge them to make friends, connect, really become a player, a part of their cabin family, the more that happens, the more that homesickness is going to go away. What else would you add to prevention, Audrey?
Well, I just love that. I think just like you said, just talking to your child about it and making it an open topic is so good. I've had many kids at camp tell me, oh, my mom told me that this might happen and that I could write a letter and that might make me feel better. Perfect. And so you can tell that they've already been sort of prepped that, oh, okay, this is normal. I'm okay. And this is what I'm thinking about doing, or this is what I talked with my dad about trying. So the coping, you know your child best. And maybe as you talk about camp and, you just say, hey, there might be times where it's a little quieter and you start thinking about home. What do you think you could do during those times that might make you feel better? And actually talk about coping strategies that your child can then maybe grasp onto once they get to camp. And like you mentioned, I'm not sure if it was when we were recording or before, but you want to talk about this when everyone's calm, you're just at home together, hanging out, relaxed. It's not in the stressful moment of the child feeling the emotions. They've got their yes brain, and you're able for them to talk with you and discuss with you. So things that you can suggest as coping strategies, which are also things that Sarah and I and other camp directors train our staff. to help kids try to access are, like Sarah already mentioned, talking to their counselor, just letting people know, talking about your feelings. Don't keep them in. Sometimes, especially older kids, feel like they can't say anything about their feelings or they're embarrassed, but it's really important that they feel comfortable talking to a trusted adult. Often, journaling or writing a letter is really a great way to get those feelings out. And in those, you can encourage them to share both the good and the bad. So 3 things that went really well today, or fun things you did, and times you were feeling sad or something, just so that they're actually getting it down on paper. You already mentioned just, I think, really important, for most kids, they are fine when they're doing activities. They're, when they're engaged and active, they're having a great time. But sometimes kids, especially if they're feeling really extreme emotions, withdraw from activities and want to sit and talk about, their feelings for a long time. And so I always think it's good, and what we train our counselors to do is to talk with them and acknowledge their feelings and comfort them and everything else, but also encourage them to get involved as much as possible. So I think if parents also give kids that as a coping strategy, it's great. Another thing is just reminding them how much you're going to be excited to see, if you have a disposable camera that they're going to be taking pictures with, or a journal that they're keeping, or something, that you're so excited to be able to see all that at the end. And then finally, some kids just like keeping a calendar. You might even pack them one that just shows them, the day they go to camp and the day they're going home, so they can kind of keep track. For some kids, I think that's helpful. Some that might not be helpful, especially at the beginning, because it'll look so long. But for especially a ways into camp, that sometimes helps kids. Is there anything else in terms of coping strategies that parents can kind of be aware of?
2 more things come to mind. One is for some children, taking what's called a transition object with them to camp can be helpful. It might be a picture of the family or of the dog. It might be a stuffed animal that reminds them of home. I had one camper, she knew she would be homesick. She was a first-time camper. She was in middle school and had some false starts at some other programs. She and her mother got the same bracelet. And so she wore it all the time, this fun little friendship bracelet, and they matched exactly. And as she climbed into bed at night, and as her counselor came around to tuck her in, she would hold on to the bracelet and pray for her family, knowing that night, mom would hold on to the bracelet and pray for her as well. And it was this really sweet, I'm thinking of you, even though you're away, and I'm thinking of you too, and we're in the same space for this time. And it was a beautiful way for that family to stay connected without impacting her days at camp. Also, I thought, would this be a good time, Audrey, to talk about deal making?
Oh, yes. I think that's great, because that is an extremely important preventative measure. Yes.
So camp directors often talk about the challenge of when we make deals with our children about homesickness. If it's hard, honey, I will come pick you up. When a parent says that to a camper, it actually conveys a lack of confidence to that child. That parent doesn't think that child can do it. And so the child doesn't do it. We would ask that you not make that promise. Rather, the communication is, honey, there might be times when you're homesick, and I am going to be rooting for you, and so is the camp. I can't wait to see you tackle this. I can't wait for the confidence it's going to build, and we're not going to come get you. But please do write us during those times. Write us during the good times and the hard times, and in 2 weeks, we can't wait to see you and hear all your stories. Please don't put that little seed of thought that if it's a hard day, mom and dad will come, because it does set our kiddos up for failure sometimes. I think also making a deal like, if you make it for these 2 weeks, then I will buy you that skateboard that you've been wanting. That ties that success to something external, when we really want our children to have an internal locus of control that says, wow, I have gained esteem and confidence by my fortitude and my perseverance to tackle this challenge. And that confidence lives inside of them. So we want to affirm and we want to celebrate their character development and not make it based on a reward from the outside.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times with these pickup deals happen like at the very last moment. Sometimes, a lot of times, maybe the child's super excited about camp, months before when they're signing up. And then just in the week or days before, or even the morning of, you're like about to get on the bus, they just suddenly have some normal, again, it's normal. Any new thing, even if you're an adult, is scary and you're nervous. And what's it going to be like? And am I going to like it? And am I going to make friends? I mean, you're nervous. So it's normal that those feelings. The problem is when the child asks you specifically, what if I don't like it? What if I'm homesick? And that's when you do need to be very careful in your message, because the way you respond to those questions will change how your child behaves at camp. And once you've told your child, if you feel sad, I'm going to come get you, the child will say to us, my parents told me that if I feel sad, i.e. normal discomfort, they're going to come get me. In those cases, it's really difficult to work with the kids. And oftentimes the only way you're going to extricate yourself from that problem is by clearly telling your child in a letter that you made a mistake and you're not going to come get them, which is horrible as a parent to feel like you've said something and then not following through. So far better to say to them all these messages that we've been saying. Hey, you know what? I'm with you. Even when it's hard, I really want to hear about that. Write me a letter. Tell me how you're feeling so that I know exactly what you're going through. Also, tell me the good stuff. I almost feel like we should transition now to the parent aspect of this, because I think this is kind of a key thing. Well, so what happened? So we got done with the pickup. We're not going to do that, right? We're not going to say to them, I'm going to come get you. Instead, we're going to express confidence and say to our child, you know what? This is going to be awesome for you. It might be hard and challenging at times, but it's going to be so great. And I'm really proud of you for doing this. So what happens when you get that first letter? So there's whole books about this. Have you seen those P.S. I hate it here books?
Yes.
And they're full books of these crazy, of course, they're laughable because they're other people's children, letters that kids have written from camp, and they are real letters. And of course, many of them have really big exaggerations about how horrible it is, because when you are feeling pain, you're going to say anything to get yourself out of the situation. So our camp is kind of remote. Most parents will get the homesick letter about 4 or 5 days into camp. And so Sarah, talk about the parent goes to their mailbox, so excited to get their first letter from their child. They open it and it's, come pick me up. I hate it here. Something like that. So what to do?
Well, first of all, know that it's a very small number of kids that will do that. The vast majority will be utterly engaged in camp, but there are a handful of campers every session that will be having that experience. Remember, that letter might have been written an hour after they got off the bus. That has happened. It might even be written on day 1 or 2. By the time I receive it as a parent, 4 days have passed, and that child has become connected and feels valued and that they belong, and it has probably passed for that child. Some may still have some lingering feelings. So as a parent, we would encourage you, with that letter in hand, please call the camp office and say, hey, I got this letter. Let me read it to you, or let me scan it to you. Can you tell me what's going on? How is my child now? Remember that the camp is your partner, and they don't know that child wrote that letter. They will listen to you well. They'll go check it out. They'll probably talk to the camper. Usually we don't tell the camper that mom called because that embarrasses them. But we talk to the counselor. We might talk to the head counselor. We observe them for maybe a half a day. And then the office should call you back and let you know how that child's doing. If there is still some lingering homesickness, then you have the opportunity to partner with camp to look at additional strategies. The camp's probably used their awesome bag of tricks, and if there's still something else, you may have the ticket. You may have the answer that camp might utilize. And we had this happen a couple years ago, and the parent helped us identify that camper just didn't have, who was a high communicator. She was someone who verbally processes. And while she had been verbally processing and loving most of camp, where it was she was missing, and the parent helped us identify this, was that she didn't get to tell mom and dad enough. She just couldn't get those letters in the mail enough. So what we did is we gave her a journal instead, and she wrote a diary, knowing full well that those 80 pages would be read together with mom and dad at the end of the session. And that met her need enough, and she just settled in beautifully. But mom helped us figure it out, that special tweak. We'd ask that you be patient with the camp as they investigate and get back to you. We'd ask that you be gentle with the office staff. Sometimes in our anxiety, we can be, a little terse. I would recommend that you don't immediately jump in your car and drive to the camp. We have had one occasion where a dad got in the car and arrived at, I think it was 6 a.m. He had driven all night because of the letter that was mailed 4 days before. And when he arrived at camp, his daughter was doing fabulously, and he didn't want her to see him to trigger anything. So we had a nice visit, and we gave him a cup of coffee, and he headed home the 6-hour drive. So do communicate. The office is your partner, and your kiddo is probably going to do just fine as we work together to help them tackle this.
And I think as an added thing, when you were talking, it just reminded me too, that one of the wonderful things about camp is that kids learn to handle some things without you. And so this is one of those times where if you were standing next to them, you would be guiding them through it, and helping them, because that's your role. And you can't help yourself as a parent of just like swooping in and hugging them and rescuing them. But by you not being there, it provides this amazing opportunity for growth, for your child to learn to talk to other people and to learn to work through difficult emotions. So I just loved when you were talking, I was just thinking about that those 5 days, your child's growing. So when you get the letter, don't panic. Know that they probably are feeling a ton better, because most of the time they are. And sometimes the kids will almost not remember that they wrote that. Or I'll say sometimes to a kid, why don't you write some more letters now that you've been at camp? Because the other thing is kids often write the letters only when they're at a downtime. And because when they're having fun and being busy, they're forgetting about it. But, at night or something. So sometimes even you might get multiple letters that express some homesickness, but sometimes it's just because their timing of when they write them too.
That's true. Now, Audrey, when a parent gets the letter and they hear the child's doing a little better, what could they write back to their kiddos? What kind of messages should mom and dad send via, snail mail or email to their camper?
Well, I think all the things that you were talking about before, first of all, just reassuring them that it's okay. Their feelings are normal. There's nothing wrong with them. They could even share a story of their own, a time that they had to struggle through being away from home, or a camp experience, or a college thing or something. I really like to encourage parents to look at the long picture. And that's kind of the Michael Thompson stuff where, this experience, it's just a week or two. It's pretty short. It's a great opportunity to grow. And so even saying that to your child and saying, I know this feels hard right now. I'm really proud of you for facing this challenge. I really think it's important to acknowledge if they wrote a miserable letter, or from the camp that they're feeling miserable. I think saying, I know you feel miserable right now. Just saying so that the child knows, okay, wait, mom knows. Because I don't know about your policy, but we do not allow phone calls. And phone calls, especially when you're feeling sad or homesick, are the worst thing. I don't know, even as an adult, when you're missing home and you hear your mother's voice, then all the emotions rise to the surface. So So you're going to probably be sending an email or a letter that the camp will deliver, or, even I've had times where I've hand delivered or read with a camper a letter. And I mean, there have been some remarkable letters that parents have written that basically just say, I'm with you. I know you're feeling this way, and I have such confidence in you that you're going to be great and do this. I also think it's important to emphasize that they're not missing anything. Like, I like the ones who are just like, we're working, everything's really boring here. It's 100 degrees. If you live somewhere hot, I don't know. I wish I could be at camp and going horseback riding or whatever you're doing, because we're cleaning out closets. Or, I don't know, you could write, just basically let them know, because a lot of the thing is they really, they fantasize about this miracle of home. So just kind of bringing it back to reality that, hey, if they were home, they'd be doing some chores or something, but it can't, try to like that kind of thing. I also say, just letting them know you're going to feel better. The days will start feeling faster once you get more adjusted. It takes some time to adjust, so it's okay. I know that the beginning was harder, but I can tell you're already having more fun from your letters or from pictures I've seen or something like that. I think encouraging them, the biggest coping mechanism is participation. So even if they have a little tummy ache because they're feeling sad, to still go out on the lake or do crafts or just get involved and do things. And I think bringing it back to, this experience is going to help you in the future. Getting through this challenge is going to really help you, and it's going to be a great thing. And I know you can do it. It's just that message over and over again. I have confidence. I know you can do it. It's going to be great. So that's sort of our messages. I will say that as camp directors, we are professionals at dealing with this, and we really can identify cases that are of concern. So a child who really is in extreme distress that's not abating. So, if they're not eating, or, we have some concerns or something like that, we will be in touch with parents and be consulting with you. And if doctors and we and you as parents feel that it's in the child's best interest to cut their stay short, that needs to be the adult decision around that child. It's pretty rare, but there are cases where a child might, be having an eating disorder or different things going on that really, it's not good for them to be at camp. And in that case, though, it can't be that the child, because they're feeling sad, that's the reason. It needs to be that the adults have all talked about it and kind of understand the situation and decide what's best for them. So I just wanted to say that it's rare, but I know, Sarah, you and I both would agree that if we, in our camp director knowledge and opinion, feel that a child needs to not be at camp for as long, we will make it a positive, shortened stay, working closely with the parents. But if the parent decides to shorten a stay and pick up their child early, I have never seen that come out well for the family. Usually, it bothers the child forever that they didn't stay. And it becomes, as Dr. Thompson says in his book, it becomes the thing they cannot do because they think, I wasn't successful at that. So it's actually, parenting wise, it's far better to have your child experience that discomfort for a week or two, get through it. And then afterwards, if they're feeling better, which most of the time they are, they probably will want to come back to camp again and do more of it. If they really still felt like, wow, it was just really hard, but I made it, that's still good.
Absolutely. That is still a success.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think that's the part that is hard as a parent, just because you want, you don't want your child to be uncomfortable. And once they're uncomfortable, you just have to realize that discomfort is where growth happens.
Well, and I think too, if you don't mind, we transition to a little bit of a related topic. Speaking of growth happening, releasing our kids, letting them go away from us is a huge growth piece for us as parents. And both Audrey and I have let our kids leave the nest in various ways when they were young, to camps other than our own, and eventually to college for some of our kids. It is no small thing, to to let your kiddo leave the nest. And so I'd like to talk just a little bit about what that's like for us. We call it being, instead of a child being homesick, we call it a parent being kid sick, really aching sometimes while we miss them, or while we just worry for them, or a combination of both. And so a few thoughts for parents. Please know you are not alone. You are a good and loving and awesome parent. And gosh, when you love something that much, it does ache when they aren't with you. I would, like Audrey said, encourage you to keep the big picture. We as parents, our job is to help raise these little humans to become grown-ups who really can function and thrive independently in the world. And this is just one of those steps on that journey. I would encourage parents in 3 ways. Don't use those days at camp to simply pine away for your child. I have done this some, so I'm admitting my own anxiety too. Don't just sit at the computer and wait for the next set of photos to be posted. Certainly we can be excited to get a letter in the mailbox or news, a text. Some camps will text news or a newsletter or posted photos. Go about your daily life. Keep life moving. We can't stop those things just to wait, because frankly, it makes our pain and our missing them even worse. I would encourage parents to be a support system for each other, not incite each other to miss more. There have been circles of parents who kind of alarmed each other by, I heard this in a letter, I saw that photo of your child, and sort of made it worse for each other, rather than saying, wow, I had a hard day today. I went and sat on his bed while he was gone, and then I remembered what an amazing time he's having, and I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud of my son today. How are you feeling about your son? It's a very different way of encouraging each other. Finally, take advantage of a little extra time that you will have on your hands. Parents work so hard to work and have a wonderful home and a nurturing space. We get kind of threadbare, we parents. So if you've got campers away at camp, take advantage of that time to maybe spend time with the younger kids that never had that much of your attention. Or take time to replant the garden, something you've been wanting to do. Or, my goodness, have a date night or 5 with your spouse, because you've got a little more time now and a little more margin. We have one set of parents at our camp that when they drop off their 2 boys, will for the next 13 days post one photo on Facebook of their time together. And it might just be a barbecue that night at home because they had time. It might be a special beverage and their feet up at the with the ocean in the background. It might be the movie they went to. But each day they post something that they did with each other, for each other, while their kids were being well cared for and having the time of their life. So be sure to nurture yourself, because then when your child comes home, you are more ready for them. You are a bigger gift to them. What else would you add, Audrey, for
I just love that. I'm so inspired, and that I agree with that. And I actually think too that, you know, how camp is this really just life-changing, amazing experience for our kids. They make new friends, they grow, they have just so much fun. I really like the concept of parents creating their own experience like that while their kids are gone. And it's probably different activities, but if you have some hobby or gardening, like you mentioned, or something that you really enjoy doing, spending time doing that and, you know, calling it your own camp, or having some friends over and doing some, you know, whatever, cooking together. I don't know, but I love that concept, so that you can then, when your kid gets home, you can say, well, you were doing your fun things and I was doing my fun things. You know, maybe they're different, but how neat to be able to share that. And wow, when, you know, what better gift can you give to your kids than parents who are reconnected and have spent some time together? I mean, that's a huge gift. So I love that focus. And of course, I also, as I speak on behalf of all camp directors, that we really ask that you don't overanalyze every photo because, you know, we're trying to like let you know what's going on at camp, and, you know, camps post varying numbers of photos and everything else. And of course we want you to see your child, but it's difficult, even with, more than one photographer sometimes. Some kids don't like to be photographed. Some just happen not to fall in the photograph. And then you might see your kid in the background of a photo, not smiling, but none of us spend the whole day smiling regardless. And you can catch. So I just think the analyzing of photos is something that is to be avoided. And just like with receiving a letter, if you do see something that, you really think, call us, that's fine. Call us or send an email and check on it. So don't dwell on it. But I would just say that tends to not really lead to accurate assessments of how the child's going on if you try to base it on one photo that you saw or your friend saw or something like that. And I think, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but it's really important. I think you did. Kind of the overall thing is just acknowledging the bittersweet feelings about being a parent, that part of doing your job well is painful for you. And I've had so many experiences now that I have, my oldest is 24, and I have had to drop my kids at more airports to go to more crazy places. One time, one of my daughters went to Uganda for 6 weeks, and somebody's been to Peru. And every time, as I'm, tears are going down my face, they're getting on an airplane, and I think to myself, why did I help her become so independent? This is so hard. I don't really like it. And yet I know that that is a huge gift, to let your child know that you love them so much that you're even going to let them feel challenged, feel discomfort, go to crazy countries or whatever their dreams are. You're not going to let homesickness or discomfort about being separated hold them back from some of their great big dreams they have.
It's a great reminder. And if I may tell, I think I've told this story before on maybe another of our podcasts, but one of my favorite moments kind of about that letting go happened when I dropped my oldest child off at Colorado University in Boulder last year. And it was the final goodbye as we moved him into his dorm, and it was in the evening. We took him out to dinner one more time, and then it was time for us to go to the airport. And I got in the car, and then I got back out of the car and gave him one more hug. And he said, "Mom, I'm gonna be fine. I've gone away before. I've practiced." And all 6'5" of my little boy turned around with his last bag and walked into that 15-story concrete brick dorm. And you know what? While I had some tears, I really did. They were really joyful. He has gone away before, and he knows how to make friends, and he knows who to ask for help, and he knows how to get dressed, and he knows how to be on time. And so many of those skills he learned at camp. So wow, what a gift to help him know that he could do it. So parents, we stand with you as you hold the concern of homesickness, and we have been there with you, and we'll probably be there again with our younger kids. But no, we really want to partner and help it be a meaningful experience of growth for your children as well as for you.
Absolutely. This has been so much fun. And of course, Sarah and I have both gotten teary at times just thinking about this ourselves, because it is not an easy thing to let our kids go. But we applaud you for taking this step of letting your child have this amazing experience. And regardless of where they're going to camp, we wish you a wonderful summer, both for you and your child, as you have this wonderful adventure that is Sleepaway Summer Camp.
And aren't we coming back with another podcast eventually, Audrey, that talks about what to do when our fabulous kids come home from their big experience?
That will definitely be our next episode, most likely released in August. and for sure, because I know you've had the same calls. I've had people call me that was an angry parent, and I was like, oh no, what happened? Did they lose something, whatever? And she said to me, my 12-year-old just got back from camp. She is crying because she misses her cabin mates and her counselor. That is not fair. I've raised her for 12 years and you have her for 2 weeks and she's now camp sick. So yes, we will address further emotional problems that occur after camp for some kids. So thank you for watching and listening, and we'll look forward to being with you again and supporting you on your journey as camp parents.
Happy summer, everybody.